The very rich know that if they can convince the architects to hate the people on benefits, then they can steal everything from the architects. They know that. They know that. Architects used to be rich. They can't afford a house now. I don't think that's going to go into reverse. If you don't work together, you're all getting eaten.
I was just wondering, because sometimes you use the language of like the best trader or the most intelligent students. So what do you think of the idea of meritocracy? Do you think there's like an unrigged version of it, or do you think it necessarily encourages competition and individualism?
You know, I'm not an extremist in either way. Like, I don't think we should have a society which just sets people up to compete. I think we definitely should have, we need a safety net to protect people. And I don't think we should have this world where competition is the be all and end all. But to be honest, there are some jobs in our society which are very, very, very important. Like the politicians, like the economists. And I think if you're going to be in the top, in the jobs which are going to affect millions of people, we need to have competition in those jobs. You know, I don't think we should be like, you know, you go to Lidl and this guy's like scanning 100 things a second because he's getting timed. You know, these guys should not be competed against each other. But I think the economy, you know, it frustrates me that there are economists in government that are rubbish. I'm not going to name no names, but there's a guy on the MPC Bank of England. I used to work with him. He is not the smartest guy I've ever met, right? And he's making the interest rate decisions. He shouldn't be there. You know what I mean? And I do think that competition, in a sense, saved me because it enabled me to compete with these rich kids and beat them. But I know it's not going to save everyone. I think we need competition in the big, important jobs, but in the way we've got it exactly wrong. We're competing the poorest people in society against each other, whilst we're letting Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak run the fucking country. These guys are idiots. Well, I never met them. I don't know them, right? But, you know.
The evidence might tend to support you.
But they look good. Yeah, well, one of them look well. They got good suits. One of them got good. Okay, whatever, right? No, listen. There should be competition. Listen, if you're earning £1 million a year, you should expect competition. If you're earning 20, 40, 50, 60 grand a year, you shouldn't be forced to sweat every hour of your life, you know. But we've got it the wrong way around. You know what I mean? Everybody I know earning less than 50 grand is being competed, and everyone I know earning more than £1 million is not being competed. So we've got it totally upside down, in my opinion.
And I think there are interesting limits to competition in that sense, particularly around skills, for example, because if someone's going to invest a lot of time and energy in learning skills, if the risk of being sacked within 6 months in a very sort of arbitrary way is very real, then why would you invest in those skills? I mean, I think there are lots of different forms of coordination that we need, of which competition is kind of one, and it's in there.
Yeah,
a society without it would obviously be a problem.
But it's way too centralised. It's way too centralised in our culture, in my opinion. I think it's, you know, I lived in Japan for a bit and they have a very different attitude towards competition. I think, in my opinion, maybe they're too far the other way, but it's way too central for me.
And it has a huge psychological effect, right? You're seeing children, you know, teenagers with incredible anxiety because they're being tested from the age of 7, and their whole experience of how they navigate life is that it's competition, and it's a really unnatural way of coming up in the world when we're kind of naturally collaborative. Sorry, I'll stop talking. Questions? This gentleman at the back.
Hi there, thanks for the talk. I was just wondering how helpful you think this rich versus poor narrative is in trying to encourage people to come together to tackle issues such as inequality. Because, for example, like I work as an architect, and sometimes, sometimes I feel poor, like I'm really struggling to make ends meet, especially with my mortgage. But I was still able to shell out like 180 quid to come to this festival. So depending on who you speak to, obviously they may consider themselves rich or poor. So how do we stop ourselves kind of devolving into these rich versus poor tribes and come together to actually tackle the issues that really matter, like you're talking about? Because sometimes I fear that this conversation becomes a bit too oversimplified, and it's entertaining for us to like laugh at the rich and kind of poke fun at them. But I imagine a lot of us here come from pretty decent backgrounds if we're actually engaging in philosophical ideas, and we shelled out the money to come to this kind of festival, and we're watching you speak. So I'm just trying to understand how we can make this conversation more productive and adult, almost, if that makes sense, or sophisticated. I'm open to ideas.
I think first thing to say is I don't hate rich people, and I hope I don't come across that way. I am a rich person, and I think if you read the book, you'll see I'm not turning around like all of these guys are terrible people, and I don't want to point the finger at nobody. I'm pointing to a systemic issue here, which is growing inequality, which is actually the middle, wealth being sucked out from the middle and going towards the top. I understand that the middle feels insecure because the middle is insecure, because the middle is actually the place where wealth is being squeezed out from. The poor are suffering as well, but they lost all their wealth a long time ago, right? They're not losing wealth. The middle is losing. And then when I say I want to tax the rich, a lot of people, architects maybe, people making 60, 70 grand, think I'm coming for them. I'm not coming for you, you know what I mean? I don't know your financial situation, but it's about the very rich. And it's not about hatred. It's not about hatred. I make money every year betting on this. What I'm telling you is, and I don't know if you watch the YouTube channel, but there's a lot of detail there, Obviously I'm here on a stage now, I haven't been able to go into detail about all the ideas, but on the YouTube channel, we go through things carefully, we try to explain things as simply as I can. Growing inequality, first of all, it's not going to stop, right? Inequality is going to keep getting worse and worse, and it's going to squeeze living standards for everyone except the people at the top here. That's going to hurt everybody, and it's about a systemic problem. And so much of the work that I do, I see, I'm trying to create an alliance, really, of the poor and the middle to protect themselves from the rich. And the rich are trying to create an alliance between themselves and the middle to protect themselves from the poor. They're doing the same thing. So, I put a video saying, we need to tax very rich people. They will say, Gary wants to tax you. You, specifically, you. Listen, I want to reduce working people's taxes to raise tax on people who are worth £5 million, £10 million, £20 million. Rishi Sunak is worth £700 million. These guys pay no tax, they can afford to pay more tax. The money that they don't pay as tax, they use to give to their kids to compete with you and your kids for houses. That's why a house costs £1 million and you can't get one. And listen, I hope I'm not motivated by hate. What I'm motivated by is the fact that I make hundreds of thousands of pounds every year betting on our society collapsing. I don't want it to collapse anymore. And it's not about hate. It's about people being allowed to live good quality lives and afford houses. I hope that helps.
More questions? This lady here.
Thank you, it's amazing. I'm going to travel 3 hours home this afternoon, and then tomorrow I go to my job with a welfare charity, dealing with debt, housing, homelessness, all sorts of things. People living at the sharp end of what's going on economically. And it's not just the heating or eating trope, there's far worse things, decisions that people are having to make. There's a question for both of you. So, Abby, your colleagues at work, and Gary, the people you used to work with, how do we show them, how do we introduce them to the people whose policies or decisions they introduce or make, the impact it's actually having on people?
Yeah.
Do we have, for example, part of your internship working in a food bank? Do you have a sabbatical every year where you're going to shelter or citizens' advice or something and looking at the issues that are actually affecting people? How do we get people out of those ivory towers and seeing what is happening? Yeah. So, Gary, you've got the benefit of having grown up in a situation where you're still with all those people, you know what's going on the street. And you've also got a benefit of having been a Londoner. You were seen. The kids that I work with, they're hours from here. They're not going to go to university here. They're not going to travel up here. They finish school at 16 because they can't afford the bus to do their A-levels. This is what we're looking at.
Yeah.
So how did the people who are devising these policies look at the impact of that? Sorry.
Yeah,
it's a good question.
Personally, I don't think the guys who I used to work with are going to save us. I don't think that's not my target. Listen, everybody is welcome to support my work, to watch my YouTube. You can be a multi-millionaire. I'm a member of a group called Patriot Millionaires, which is a group of millionaires. They're nice guys, right? They campaign for higher taxes. But in all honesty, I don't think there's the guys who are going to save us. In reality, I think what we need to do is, try to convince people like the guy who asked the former question that they're on the same side as the people you're asking about. Because at the end of the day, the middle, and listen, and this is the thing I'm so aware of when I make my YouTube channels, right? I'm so aware that there's people who are watching that channel that can't afford to put food on the table, that are struggling in a very, absolute basic way. But I also know that the people I need to win this politically they're not rich, but they're better off than that. And find myself, and I'll guarantee you that billionaire-funded press, they know that as well. They know that as well. And they constantly try to create dividing lines between the people who you're talking about and people who, the kind of person who's mentioned before, who might be on 60, 70 grand a year. Because they know that, the very rich know that if they can convince the architects to hate the people on benefits, then they can steal everything from the architects. They know that. They know that. And that's, I think, and I'm constantly trying to find ways, you know, and we're talking here in England, right? You know, I'm English, you know as well as I know that this is a class divided society. So, you know, I try to think, how can we connect these people? How can we, and I kind of focus on saying at the end of the day, you've got common interest, because they've been eating the poor for breakfast for a long time, but they're coming for the architects next. I guarantee you. Listen, no, trust me. My dad worked for the post office and he was able to afford like a decent life. Okay, he was poor, but he could afford a decent life. People who do that job now are homeless. Architects used to be rich. They can't afford a house now. I don't think that's going to go into reverse. So I'm trying, as somebody who comes from a poor background, but kind of move, you know, I'm here now, so you can see the circles I'm moving in, right? To convince these two groups of people, if you don't work together, you're all getting eaten. You know what I mean? And not everybody I work with is a bad person, but I don't go to them to save us, because I don't think they're going to. We have to save us.
Hi. So most kids finish school knowing how volcanoes work.
Okay.
But they haven't a clue what pound cost averaging is.
Okay.
Or how to set up a LISA. Because a 17-year-old, if he can compound his wealth at 6%, very modestly, over 40 years, lands up with a shitload of money. And this basic understanding and grasp is really been hijacked by a consumer-orientated focus and general mentality and malaise in society. So it's really about education at a grassroots level and changing the national curriculum to incorporate financial fluency for everyone. It just strikes me that that is a significantly big piece of the puzzle that's missing.
Yeah, my channel is not primarily a financial advice channel. There's a lot of financial advice channels out there. I've worked with a guy called Conversation of Money. If you want financial advice, I'm not a financial advice channel. The one thing I would say is, you know, I don't know how old you are. Listen, saving up what you can from your paycheck until you can buy a house, you better live a long time if you're a kid nowadays. I just don't think it works for most people. You know, if these guys can't pay the rent, mate. You know, how much you save, what you spend it all.
No, but
Yeah.
it's less about that. If you just, 10% of your paycheck,
Yeah.
put away.
Yeah, I mean, 10%, listen, a lot of people, sorry, I've got to move on because we've got more questions, but, 10% of your paycheck might be a lot, but 10% of someone else's paycheck means no food on Friday, you know what I mean? That's what I'm saying.
Yes, but the 10% is purely theoretical for an increasingly large number of people, I think, which is reminding me of, I have a friend she's a family law solicitor, and somebody was talking to her about, idea of realism, that the poor are always with us. And her reply to that was, actually, I think you'll find that the poor are mostly with each other. And I think the more polarized we are, the more separated we are, the less, the more we live in our bubbles, the more we live in our sort of echo chambers of what we think is going on. And so part of what we can all do wherever we are is trying to break back out of our bubbles and look hard at the reality of what's going on around us. And it's not what theory told us it was going to be. And unfortunately, we're going to have to end because we're at the end of that. I would encourage you to look at Gary's economics. I'd encourage you to tell people about the book. It isn't cheerful, but it's real. And I think we sort of have a duty to try and, engage with those things. Thank you very much indeed for coming, and thank you, Gary.
To continue watching this video, click the link in the top left or in the description below.
With a free trial, you can enjoy the full talk and thousands more.
Thank you for being part of the conversation.